Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Betsy Greenleaf on another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. I'm very excited to have with us Udo Erasmus. He is a pioneer in the health and wellness industry with creating flax oil and bringing to our attention the importance of oils in our health and also just with full body mind wellness. And I'm so excited to be talking to him and picking his brain today. So welcome with us, welcome with us, Udo Erasmus. Thank you so much, Udo, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
So I wanted to start with, how did you get involved in this idea of wellness?
Well, I was born during the Second World War. 1942, I was born. So, and by the end of the war, my parents were from Latvia and Estonia. My background was German, Swedish. We were born in Poland, but I was born in Poland, but it was part of Germany. At the end of the war, we were refugees, just mostly mothers and children in horse-drawn hay wagons, trying to get out of Poland with the communists chasing us in trucks and tanks.
Oh my goodness.
And if that wasn't enough, there were no soldiers on the road. There was no military presence on these roads. The Allies were shooting at us from planes. They were basically using refugees as target practice. Now, remember, these are the good guys. Wow. So I have a very different picture of war and the good guys and the bad guys, because I don't think there are any good guys in war.
Yeah.
So we got out. I got left behind, and I remember hunger and confusion and didn't know what to trust, and anxiety, and I carried that anxiety with me. I mean, I can still go there, and if I'm not conscious, and I start thinking about negative things, I start going like that, and it's that's just an anxiety, neurotic thing, right? So that's where I started. When I was 6, we were in Germany. We all got reunited. Everything worked out okay. Nobody got killed. But when I was 6 years old, I listened to people arguing, adults arguing, and I was 6 years old, and I thought what they were arguing about was really trivial. So it must have been pretty trivial. I don't remember what the arguments were, but it just occurred to me. It was like, man, there has to be a way that people can live in harmony. And then this little bright thought, I'm going to find out how. That became my mission in life when I was 6 years old. And when later on, I tried things, and I was always experimenting because I didn't know what I could trust, and I didn't know how things worked. And the whole social situation was not stable. So I was always trying to figure out how things work. And I busted a lot of things when I was a kid, just trying to bang them together, which one was stronger. And, like my little science experiments. And when it came to studying, I went into science because I wanted to understand how things work. Because once you know how things work, then they become more predictable and you know what you can rely on. Then I got into biological sciences to figure out how creatures work. Then I got into psychology to figure out how thinking works. If your goal is to find out how people can live in harmony, those are probably important things to know. Then I got into medicine because I wanted to know what health is. Found out very quickly that medicine is actually disease management, not healthcare, because they called it healthcare, but I didn't know that it was disease management. Then I went back into biological sciences and got into biochemistry and genetics. In biological sciences, you actually study health because you're studying the normal functioning of normal creatures. And then I left because all of this time, I still hadn't found what I'm looking for, like that famous song says, right? The U2 song, you know that?
Yeah.
Still haven't found what I'm looking for, right? And so I left university and got involved in experimental stuff and traveling and eventually got into self-knowledge, because what I really needed to know is how I work. And how we work doesn't get a lot of attention because our workings are inside, but our senses take our awareness outside. And going outside is automatic for survival, because when there's change, you have to assess it very quickly. Is it friend, is it foe, or is it irrelevant? And then you have to act on it. And that's for survival. But there's nothing that automatically brings you back, because there's nothing inside of you going, change, because what attracts our senses, our awareness out through our senses, is change, something moving. You hear something, You see something running, right? And that's automatic for survival. But going in has to be deliberate. And the only thing, as close as you get to getting an incentive to go inward in your awareness, is that your heart aches. And when your heart aches, it's because you lose something on the outside. But the ache is not about what you lost outside. The ache is what you lost when you got disconnected from yourself. Because when you were a baby in the womb, there was no place to go. So your awareness was inside, at rest, in its source, in life. So you were in the idyllic state. And then when you were born, then you went outside and got disconnected from inside. So when you feel that heartache or emptiness or loneliness or longing or blues, I mean, I have 10 pages of words we use for this uneasy feeling in our chest that's triggered by lots of different things. It's always a feeling of loss, but ultimately it is the heart calling our awareness to come back home inside to its source in life. And that source is, if you want to go into what that is, the physicists call it the field, and the people in religion call it God. Because your connection to your creator is not in your head. That's where you memorize the words. But it's in an experience of wholeness that you find only when you bring awareness to the core of your own being.
And I agree with you, because having gone through traditional medicine training, I agree, because I wanted to, I entered medicine because I wanted to help people and make them healthier. And you're right. It's all, especially in traditional Western medicine, it's all like disease triage, that all we're doing is just prolonging, or kind of decreasing the symptoms of disease, but we never get down to true health.
Right.
And we can't ever get to true health unless we're dealing with, like, the whole theme of this show, body, mind, spirit. Mm-hmm. Because as a doctor, I can do all I want to someone's body, but they're never going to be healthy until they've looked inside and, have improved their inner health, their mental or spiritual health. Yeah. So
yeah, the wholeness lives inside of us. It's always there. Even if your body is sick, the wholeness is still inside of you. But that wholeness is not physical. It's life energy is whole, and the awareness behind that is always whole. And if you can get to that wholeness, you can actually rebuild everything. And it's not that hard to change habits that you need to change in order to heal physically. If inside you feel whole and it feels unbelievably good. And then to make the changes you need to make is not that difficult. It still takes effort, but it's, when you're inspired, that you have energy and you're not stuck in your mental ruts. And then to make the changes to prolong this beautiful experience that you're having, being alive in human form, made out of dust, water, air, and sunlight, that experience, if you have that experience and you love that experience, then you'll do whatever it takes to prolong it and improve it. And then that's not hard. But if you're not connected, then you head from inspiration downward towards depression. Mm. And when you're depressed, everything's too much work. And if you're depressed enough, then you'll actually destroy your body.
And I think we see so many people in that state, especially nowadays. Yeah. So I think for the majority of people, even myself, it's like, where do you start? Like, you're like, okay, I need to make a change, but I don't know how, or I don't know where or when, or, to get it started. What are your suggestions?
Well, yeah, my suggestion is you do something that's completely counterintuitive. So when your heart aches, what we tend to do is we do whatever it takes to distract ourselves from it. And what I say is, no, this is the greatest gift you've been given other than being alive. Sit with it and feel it, because it's calling you to come home. Right? And when you sit with it, it may be intense, but don't judge it, just feel it. Be with yourself, because that's where you're at. You got to, you can't get the race to feeling better if you're not willing to accept where the starting point is that you're at. So this ache is the starting point for the journey to wholeness, and it's an inward journey. And that far, like less than a hair's breadth behind this heartache, is your wholeness. So you're so close, closer than your nose, closer than your breath. So you sit with it, and you sit quietly and acknowledge it and feel it and accept it. And maybe even embrace it and be grateful for it once you understand that this thing is not like some curse that you're having to deal with, but this it was built into you in order to find your way home. And home is, the kingdom of heaven is inside, right? Right? And God lives there, right? And all of the masters, whether you're talking about Christian or Buddhist or Hindu, all the masters had some way of saying, do this first, It's like, if you do this first, everything else will fall into place. And this definitely is my experience. Nothing was working. And eventually I had some very powerful internal experiences. And honestly, I have to say, I'm the richest person I know. I feel better than anybody I know. I'm comfortable in all of the change that happens in the world, because something in me is a foundation that doesn't change. And so I can be in my foundation, even if I have to wear a mask and I can't go out of the house. And, so if you can't go outside, I say, go inside, because inside is everything that you're chasing on the outside. You already got it. So it's not like when you get $1 million or you have whatever the successes are that you measure your value by. None of those will give you the wholeness that is the driving force behind everything you do. The driving force, the disconnection was inside. So you can't reconnect it on the outside. You have to connect it on the inside. And that's the human journey. If we're lucky enough to complete it, a lot of people don't, but that's the human journey. We go out as children, and then we try out things in the world. And if we're lucky, we get to a point like I did when I was 17. I couldn't shake this heartache. I couldn't find any distractions. I'd had already too many things in my life. And I couldn't identify something that, I think I'll go after this. I couldn't identify anything that I thought would make me feel better. And I realized, this is an inside job, but I didn't know how to do it. So I sat with that for 13 years before I heard that the peace you search for in the world is within you. I can show you. I can help you with that. And then when I started doing the practice of sitting down and getting better at being present in the space my body occupies, then everything started getting better. Everything changed. Instead of saying, what can I do that'll get me taken care of? And not doing things that needed to be done because I couldn't see how they would take care of me. I got to a point where I said, wow, I'm taken care of. It's not about me anymore. And because I feel cared for, there's nothing left to do except to help. Because what are you going to do once you feel taken care of? What are you going to do for yourself? Other than, you got to eat a little bit and sleep a little bit and, all of that simple stuff. But not in terms of how famous I can get, how rich I can get, how many things I can acquire. Because you don't need all that. Because you have more than everything built into you by the Creator, by life, by nature, by however you phrase that. You have more than enough built into you. And your needs are relatively simple and very easy to take care of. And
that is wonderful, Udo. And I'm going to talk to you. I want to talk to you about it more, but we're going to take a commercial break and then we'll get back to get into this a little more.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made by good people. That's why I love Dry Farm wines. I first met the man known as the healthiest wino on earth back in 2016. He claimed Dry Farm wines don't cause headaches or hangovers, and that he started his company because 99% of wine consumed in the US is highly processed and loaded with nasties. Like most processed food, it's toxic. That very night, I made a big health decision. Toxic wines out, natural wines in. It's been nearly 5 years since I made the switch, and I feel great. Go to happyliving.com, select Partners in Happy, and get your first bottle of natural wine for 1 penny. And I'll donate 8% of every order placed for the entire month of March to WITV7. So share the gift of natural wine with a friend. It'll make you both happy.
And we're back speaking with Udo Erasmus. And I was just saying before, I'm actually so sad our show is only half an hour because I could probably talk to you for hours about this. And I was thinking about when you were talking about how many people you either push away this feeling because at first it can be very painful and they may push it away with food or alcohol or drugs. Or then other people are searching for the answers in success and they just keep acquiring more and more stuff and they realize that that stuff still is not making them happy when all the answers to this is just looking inside. So
yeah, you're looking away from what you already got. It's just like, okay, right? And if you think about it, however long we've been here, the researchers say 200,000 years. Everything we've done that has been destructive has come out of discontent that comes from disconnection. And all of the things that we've done was always in the hope that when I succeed in whatever it is, then I will feel whole again. I will feel okay again. And it's never worked. And all our new things that always promise that, oh yeah, this is going to do it. Now it's IT. Right. And before it was computers and iPhones and, and everything we've done, better living through chemistry. We're always thought that we can make it better. And it's all driven by discontent. And it all ends up destructive at some point. I could be sitting here and be feeling the peace that is at the core of my being. And the core is at the core of every being. And then I look out at the world and I say, oh my God, peace has always been everywhere. And the question is like, well, how come I didn't see it before? Or the reason is because only peace recognizes peace. Mm. So I could be sitting in the same space and be angry. And by saying, oh my God, I'm surrounded by enemies. And because of that perception that comes out of my discontent, because nobody who's content is angry. It's like, nobody who is feeling peace is beating people up, right? So I would be looking, I say, okay, because I'm discontent, I see enemies, I create enemies in my perception in the same place where if I'm in peace, I say, hey, peace has always been everywhere. And so then I perceive enemies, and then I start living into the world in a way of defeating enemies. And I'm going to produce something very different than if I experience peace and then live peace into the world. And if I'm in the same situation, I'm fearful, then I'm going to see danger. So my state of being, or my emotional state, or my state of discontent versus contentment creates my perception. And out of that perception, I create my world by my behavior. That's how powerful state of being is. That's how important it is. If we want to fix what's wrong, we got to get to the point where we realize nothing is wrong, because what we think is wrong is the outcome of living, of behaving out of our discontent, right? So the big transformation that people talk about that we need is a transformation of becoming present in our own life again, feeling whole again, and becoming an expression of that wholeness into the world. And by the way, once again, that's what all of the masters talked about in one way or another, using one way or another in different cultures, said it in different ways. Same story. What you have, what you're looking for, you have. And when you get in touch with that, your world's going to work.
It's a shame that we've gotten away from that, or we're not taught this more aggressively when we're younger, so that we could carry this with us through our lives, and that people do have to reach these kind of almost rock bottom places before they are kind of like shocked into looking internally for the answers.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame in a way, because the first monk, the first guy who got out of bed, when Adam got out of bed, he got out on the wrong side of the bed. So basically he has to go back in bed and get out on the right side of the bed, right? In a way. And of course, because we didn't do our homework to feel fulfilled, we then taught our kids not to feel fulfilled, and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. And that's why it's not working. So who's going to be the person who teaches that education? Right? That's the problem. It's like you can't teach what we need to learn if you haven't mastered what you need to master, right? And the master, if you want to talk about masters, the master lives inside of every human being. The master is called life energy. Life energy, if you do it scientifically, they say comes from the sun. So solar energy goes into leaves, gets stored in atoms between molecules. We eat those molecules as food. We break down the molecules. That energy is released. That's the life energy. So it's sunlight energy, or solar energy, because there's also sound in that energy. and that life energy weighs nothing, but runs everything. Right? It's omnipresent in me, it's omnipotent in me, and it's omniscient in me. All powerful, all knowing, everywhere present. That's a definition of God. It's within every human being as life. And that life energy loves my body unconditionally. So never takes time off, never asks for a raise, never goes on strike, never punishes me for being stupid, right? Love, 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 no matter what, unconditionally loving. So you want unconditional love? The model, you have the model. And when you feel that unconditional love, because you get present to it, then you have a model. Then you can actually start to work on what would it be like for me to be unconditionally loving to other people. You can't do that if you don't feel unconditionally loved. But you are unconditionally loved, even when you're not paying attention. See, even if I'm really crazy and I hate my life and I'm really angry, life makes that molecule of whatever it is, calcium, or that atom of calcium or magnesium, that is in my food. It digests the food. I don't digest the food. Life does that. And then takes that atom or that molecule, and while I'm freaking out in my head, is moving that molecule, that atom, exactly to where it's being called for in the body. How does it do that? Nobody really knows. No, but it happens. Most of it is not in our control, but all of it is in life's control. And so there's the master, whether you go Christ inside of you, Buddha inside of you, whatever you call that, inside of you is that thing that has that power. And the masters in human form were human beings who took it seriously and spent time being present to that power in them. And that's why they were wise, and that's why they were funny, and that's why they were fun, and that's why people wanted to hang out with them, and that's why they could heal people. Because when you're that whole, it rubs off on people. And there's something in every human being that wants that, even though they may not know that that's what they want. But that uneasiness is really for the homecoming. It's really for embodying the master. And when 8 billion people understand that, this is going to be a very different planet.
I'm sure it's got to take some practice, like when you hear what you're saying, and I'm hoping a lot of people, hear this, not just, listen, but hear it. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but there's got to be some practice and maybe even a little resistance.
Yeah. I've been doing this for 48 years. So I do it every day. And I take, just like I take time for breakfast and time for the bathroom, I take time for being still and exploring that stillness. Because in that stillness, there is sound. In the emptiness, there's love. In the darkness inside, there is light. And it takes, just like it took time to go out, or it took time to learn to walk. When you start doing this, you're going to be not that good at it. That's why it helps to know that the ache is where you start, because that gets you pretty close. You're already out of your head. When your heart aches, it makes you simple, gets you out of your head, grounds you. That's a really good start. And then when I started doing that, I used to say, oh man, this is so hard. And it was always really hard. And one day it occurred to me, gee, I wonder what would happen if I said, oh, this is a snap. This is easy. So I said so, even though that wasn't my experience. I said, oh man, this is so easy. And you know what? It became exponentially easier the moment that I didn't talk myself out of it. Because I created this is hard. Right?
That's a really good point.
It can't be that hard. Human beings can do it. Right? So,
there's so much information that you have, and I know that you have a course out there. So where can people find out more information? You have a book, you have courses. Where can people find out more information about you?
Okay, I have 2 websites. One is called Udo's Choice, udoschoice.com. And on that, I talk about the products I work with, physical stuff like enzymes, probiotics, oils made with health in mind. They're the high energy molecules, the highest energy molecules. And energy is again, this energy. What is energy? Right? So they provide the most energy in their molecules, that when we break them down, they release the most energy. So that's always helpful to have more energy. Then the other one is called theudo.com, THEUDO, or udoerasmus.com. It's a little harder to figure that one out. And we have courses on it and just some of the things I'm talking about. We talk about business, and it's always based on human nature first. What is a human being? And then that applies, that informs how you make a living, how you find your purpose, how you get healthy, how to deal with anxiety, depression, anything that's going on. The answer is always the same. If you can bring your awareness back home into the space your body occupies and be in that space rather than just being in your head, that's where you find all of your answers. And then if you're living and you have a problem and you need to try and figure it out, why not talk to life? Why not talk to life, your master that you have personally, with only the mission of making your life livable and ecstatic even. Why don't you ask life instead of always running to experts who may not have your benefit in as their agenda, but maybe are doing it for other agendas. But life's only agenda is to make your life good and rich. Why not? Why? And you have it with you, and nobody else in another trench, can give you the best advice in the trench in which you live. The leadership model is really crazy. Some guy in the White House, or, in my case, in Ottawa, this is supposed to be helping 37 million people, 330 million people get all of their affairs working. You can't even do that for your own family, right? So the model is wrong. How about this? In every human being is the leader, the one that has the best advice, that knows everything going on in your life, that you can ask and get answers from with no other agenda involved. How about that? And then when we do that, 8 billion people could be living on this planet, all following the same leader, except the leader, is in each one of them. How cool is that?
You know what, Udo, I absolutely
We're wired for that.
What you've brought to light today is absolutely amazing. And I think that you're making such an amazing difference in the world. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. I wish we could talk to you more. Maybe we'll get you back on again in the future. But I wanted just to remind the listeners and viewers that if you enjoyed what we were talking about today, please go to wytv7.org. You can find out more information about our show, other shows, and also if you feel moved to donate to help us bring more of these programs to you. And also your donations do go towards helping other people. And you can see all the different projects that we're involved with helping other people. And for more information about myself, you can go to drbetsygreenleaf.com. And stay tuned for next week, for same time, for another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. And once again, thank you so much, Udo, for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. This is fun. I'm glad I get to do this.